Welcome to part 3 of Garage Talk, in which I'll be discussing dirt bike maintenance special tools. The heart of any dirt bike is of course the engine, and being able to monitor the health of the engine using some test equipment is useful in determining whether you need to perform a top end overhaul or not. What I have here is a compression tester, which is useful for testing two-stroke engines. And the model I have is made by OTC. It's model number 5606, and it contains the compression tester, which reads from 0 up to 300 psi. And then it has a couple of different adapter hoses and some adapters. And for KTMs, you need the long M14 thread. You thread it into the cylinder, crank the engine over, either kick it or you can use the electric starter, and read off the pressure. And that tells you what sort of state the ring to cylinder seal is in. If you're getting a very low reading, it indicates possibly the rings are worn and need replacing. So it's a good idea to do a measurement when the engine is fresh as a reference, and then take readings every so often. You could do it every oil change or every other oil change, and then you can monitor the engine that way. Most four-stroke engines have a auto decompression feature which operates before the engine is running. So when you're trying to start it, either kicking it or turning it over with a starter motor, the auto decompressor keeps the compression in the cylinder low, making it easier to turn over for starting. Unfortunately, that means you can't use a compression tester, but what you can use is a leak down tester. So that's what I have here. This model is made by OTC. The model number is 5609, and the method to use it is to remove the spark plug, and then using the hose supplied, screw it into the cylinder, and then you attach a compressed air source, typically around 100 psi. And then you can monitor the leakage on the dial and figure out whether it's good or bad. So this test as well, it's good to have a reference when the engine is fresh, and then you can monitor the state of the engine over time. And then what's really handy is you can debug what part of the engine is not good. So for example, if you observe that air is leaking from the crankcases, that would indicate that the piston to cylinder seal is not good. Or if you had air leaking from the exhaust, that would indicate that the exhaust valve is leaking and possibly needs replacing. So this is a really handy tool to have if you have a four-stroke. Four-stroke fuel-injected dirt bikes have a throttle position sensor, and one thing you can do is change the voltage of the throttle position sensor and tweak the fueling by doing that. And this particular tool I made myself, and what it does is apply a accurate 5-volt source to the throttle position sensor, and then you can monitor the output from the throttle position sensor on a voltage meter. So I made up a couple of cables to fit KTM fuel-injected four-stroke models from 2012 up to 2018 using this tool. So similar tools are available commercially. So if adjusting the TPS voltage is something you want to do, you definitely need a tool like this to do that. For four-stroke fuel-injected bikes, one handy tool to have for cleaning the fuel injector is this tool made by Motion Pro. So you can see here the body. It comes with a little harness with a plug, and what you do is plug the fuel injector into here, plug it in using the connector, and then you can apply voltage to the injector, open it, and then you put your cleaner in here, and when the injector is open, spray the cleaner through. So simple tool, but does a great job in cleaning the injectors. So if you have a fuel injected bike, this is a really handy tool to have. So you can see on here the various styles of connectors for different fuel injectors. So make sure you get the right connector for your fuel injectors. Here I've got a few tools which are really handy for four-stroke top end overhauls. At the back are a set of piston ring compressors. So these ones are fixed, as you can see. It's a ring and it's tapered. So you put the piston in at the top and push it down and it compresses the rings. These are made by Wiseco. They're really nicely made and highly recommend these. Much easier to use than the adjustable ones. So I have a set which goes from 95, then 88 and 78 millimeters. So the 95 is used for 500 and 450, 88 for 350 and 78 for 250. So you can do all of the KTM 4-stroke models with these 3 ring compressors. Really nice tool to have. And then here are some piston Gudgeon Pin circlip install tools. These are made by KTM. I've got one for a 250, one for 500, and the clips are very stiff and difficult to install doing manually. With this tool it makes it very easy to do, so highly recommend those as well. And then for the head, if you want to disassemble it and check it out, you'll need a valve spring compressor tool. So this tool has various bits and can work on pretty much any 4-stroke head. And then if you're replacing your valve seals, I made this handy tool. It's pretty easy to make if you have a lathe. It has 2 different heads, one on each end. The larger one is for the exhaust side and the smaller one is for the intake. And you just press the seal down on the valve and it makes it very easy rather than trying to find a socket the right size. So that's a handy tool to make. And then if you want to check the valve guide wear, KTM actually make this set. 1 pin for the intake, 1 pin for the exhaust, and if it fits inside, you know your valve guides are worn and need replacing. If it doesn't fit inside, you're okay and can carry on using. So these are a handy tool to have as well. This is a tool I made myself, and it's used for installing camshaft bearings into 500 head. And you can see in this photo where I'm installing the bearing, it simply presses the bearing straight into the bearing bore without damaging the bearing. It was a fun project to make and also nice to use, although I only used it once, but still a nice tool to have. If you need to remove the flywheel, you'll need a puller tool, and these ones made by Motion Pro are nicely made and not too expensive. So you need to look up the thread you need. A lot of KTMs use a M26 with a 1.0 thread. So this is one I have, but certainly before purchase, look up and double check what thread you have. 2-stroke engines are very easy to overhaul and require very few specialist tools. But one thing that can be tricky to do is remove the Gudgeon pin because it's often stuck in the piston. So I created this special tool which fits in the Gudgeon pin, and then you can support the piston with one hand while it's still connected to the conrod and tap out the Gudgeon pin with the other hand. If you're interested in this tool, it fits both 250 and 300 KTMs and is available on the Tokyo Off-Road web shop. Here you can see various suspension maintenance and overhaul tools. The tools on the right are all fork cap wrenches. So the 2 DRC wrenches both have 3/8 drives on them, which allows you to use a torque wrench when reinstalling the caps and torque to specification. And then on the bottom of the tool they have cartridge holders, which is handy. And then these 2 tools are for different style KTM fork caps. These 2 tools are used for seals. So this is a dust seal removal tool. I actually sell this on the Tokyo Off-Road web shop, so if you're interested in this, have a look there. And then this tool is a seal mate, which is a thin piece of plastic with a hook on it, which you can use to clean out dirt from the oil seal if it's leaking. If the leak is not too bad, you can often fix the leak with this tool. If it is bad, you'll need to replace the seals, in which case you'll need a fork oil seal driver tool. So this is a 48mm tool, and a bullet tool. So this is made by Motion Pro, again for 48mm forks, and allows you to slip the oil seal on easily without damaging the seal. So that's a handy tool to have as well. And then if you need to work on the cartridges, you often need to hold them in a vise, and having some soft jaws which are designed to hold the cartridge without damaging it is important. So you can make these yourself or buy them. And then if the cartridge bladder, well, depending on the fork, you might have a bladder which needs to be filled with nitrogen or air. You'll need a valve tool like this. So this has a needle on one end and a Schrader valve on the other. So that's a handy tool to have. And then when setting the oil, you'll often need to set the oil height. This is a oil height measurement tool, so that's handy to have. And then for the rear shock, when you're setting up your sag, you'll often need to adjust the preload. So having a wrench like this, which fits your shock, is an important tool to have. Next, I'm going to talk about bearing replacement tools. This is a set I have which is intended for blind bearings, for pulling them out. And it has a set, all different sizes. These bits, they fit inside the bearing. And then you use a bit like this to expand it. It grips onto the bearing, and then you can use either a slide hammer or this tool to pull the bearing out. So handy for wheel bearings or in your transmission, in the crankcases for pulling those bearings out. Really handy tool set to have. These tools are used for headset bearing replacement. This tool on the bottom I made myself from some steel pipe. And it's used for knocking out the bearing races. So you just slit it using an angle grinder and then bend these out to match the outer diameter of the bearing race. You pass it up and then these snap out and press against the race. Then you can knock the race out from the other end. So really easy tool to make yourself, and makes the race replacement much easier. And then this is a bearing press tool for KTM headsets. So I sell this one on the Tokyo Off-Road web shop. So if you're interested in that, have a look on the web shop. Here are a few more Tokyo Off-Road special tools. This is a counter shaft seal press tool. This is a Heim joint bearing press tool. And this is a wheel bearing press tool. And then last I'm going to show a couple of chain tools. This tool is used for chain size 420 through 530. Most dirt bike chains are size 520, so that's no problem. And it can be used to install new rivet links or clip style links. So even the clip master links, they require pressing in, so you definitely need a tool like this. And then this tool is used for installing the clip on clip style master links. And it's a specially shaped pair of pliers, basically. If you can see, this jaw is specially shaped so it fits the pin on the chain, and this holds the clip, and you just close it like that and it presses on the clip. It's much easier using this tool than trying to use a screwdriver or regular set of pliers. Often if you try and do it that way, it can prove to be quite frustrating, so highly recommend getting a pair of pliers like this. So that's it for part 3 of Garage Talk. In part 4 I'll be discussing tyre tools.